Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randirhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fall. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
You know, when I talk to Democrats in competitive districts, swing districts, those like yourself who flipped districts this last cycle, they often tell me, and when I say why aren't you there yet, they say that what they're hearing from constituents is they don't want us to focus on impeachment or the Russia investigation, the Mueller report. They want you to focus on the agenda, healthcare, the opioid crisis, you name it. For those members, what's your message to them?
Well, I'm not trying to persuade anybody else. I'm trying to do what I think is right. But I can tell you that folks in my district absolutely want me to focus on infrastructure, on health care, and on gun violence. And they don't see any contradiction between doing that and also standing up for the rule of law and checks and balances. I campaigned on both. And, you know, the notion that we can just ignore everything that's happening, this freak show at the White House, it's just not realistic. It's like saying that, you know, I'm so focused on remodeling my kitchen that I'm not going to pay attention to my house catching fire. We do have a constitutional duty to do both. The House of Representatives has done a great job on health care and on infrastructure and gun violence. We can do this as well.
Thank you, Tim Malinowski from New Jersey. Yes, they can do both. In fact, they did do both. This is pretty amazing. Yesterday, the House passed the Dream and Promise Act, something, just so you know, in 2013, we had comprehensive immigration reform. Remember that? In the Senate. We had the Gang of Eight. You had bipartisan agreement on a comprehensive immigration reform package of changes to the law, how to deal with asylum seekers, money for border security, et cetera, et cetera. And it died because at that time, the House was in Republican hands and they didn't want to introduce it. Well, the opposite has happened. Here you have the House in Democratic hands. Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats put forward the Dream and Promise Act, which is the DACA and the TPS, temporary protected status, people living in this country who are living under complete and utter fear of deportation with this, a freak show of a president. And so they were able yesterday to pass a piece of legislation that would give those people a path to citizenship. Not a citizenship card, just a path to citizenship if they don't break the law. You can't even have a ticket for jaywalking and stay in that class of dreamers that now have a path to citizenship, just so you know. So these are, America's best and brightest. These are the kids that came here through no fault of their own. These are the kids that did everything right. These are the kids that went to school, educated themselves, are now teaching in our schools, and the House literally passed this with 7 Republicans joining them.
The bill is passed. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Woohoo! That was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. And now it will go to the Senate to die because the Grim Reaper, Mitch McConnell, will never, ever bring it up. But it passed 237 to 187. There were 7 Republicans that voted yes. All it does is create a new legal pathway for young, undocumented immigrants brought to the United States as children through no fault of their own. And it also protects the people with temporary protected status. Now, who are those people? Those are immigrants whose countries are ravaged by violence or natural disasters. And, of course, it will die in the Senate. Sad, right? Neil in L.A.
Hi, Randy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very good. I've been a fan of yours for many, many years since Air America, and you're my North Star. So I was listening, and I listen religiously, and I heard that there was a dispute over what D-Day stands for.
Yeah.
And it's something that, quite honestly, I'm a result of. And my father was one of the people that planned D-Day.
Oh, really?
He was an American Army officer who came over to England, met my mother, and that's why I say I'm a result of that. But literally it stands for day. Because
that's what
my father was.
I had always heard that it just simply stands for day, and that
because they didn't want to give any clue as to what it really meant.
Right. And so then the day before today was known as D1, and that's why
D-1.
Yes, D-1, and that's why we celebrate or commemorate. We shouldn't say celebrate, but we commemorate the sacrifice today, and then the days after were D+1, D+2, D+3, like that. So that's what I'd always heard, right? Disembarkation, I think, is for cruise lines.
Right. Yes, exactly. And there was a lot more going on than just disembarking.
Yes,
I mean,
there was.
You had planes flying and bombing and so on.
Yeah.
But yeah, my dad was part of a group. My father was in Normandy 6 months prior to D-Day.
Wow.
Doing reconnaissance. And he was actually in the battle on Utah Beach.
Oh my God!
He was, so I studied it all my life. He's buried in Arlington. The country honored him amazingly.
Who is your father, if you don't mind saying?
Well, he's one of the many people that history doesn't record. He was at the time he was a major, Julius Blatt. He was the youngest lieutenant colonel in the American Army at age 27.
Oh wow! Oh my God, 27. That is young for a colonel.
But that's what was so amazing. And he always used to refer to the fact that he went to Columbia University when he was 16, so he was never a contemporary with his peers.
He was a brainiac. He was a big brain.
And that's why he ended up in the position he was in, and he was working for Eisenhower and all of them. I mean, in fact, there was, I don't know how widely known it is, but Operation Overlord was the general name for the operation.
Yes.
But somebody leaked information about the name and what its purpose was. And Eisenhower created a much smaller group of people that were called bigoted. They were bigots. They were B-I-G-O-T. And if you were a bigot, you were the highest level of security clearance. Now, the reason they used bigot was because in the North Africa landings, all the artillery and everything was marked to Gibraltar. So they reversed it, and they came up with bigot.
That's where my
look up bigot.
That's where my dad was. That's where my dad started.
North Africa?
Yes, he's got that 3-continent medal, my dad. There's a medal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he also has a Bronze Star for conspicuous gallantry. But yeah, your dad sounds amazing.
Well, after D-Day, he ended up joining up with Patton and went with the Third Army all the way to Berlin. He went behind enemy lines a second time.
Oh, this is going to be crazy. My dad was in the Third Army, so you know what? Wouldn't that be weird if they knew?
Well, he was head of the combat engineers.
Oh my God!
The Third Army. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Wow. I would love to explore that and find out if they knew. I mean, I have a book of my dad's unit. I'm going to look for your dad in it.
Yeah, I mean, he stayed in England after the war, and with my mother, and I lived there. I had American citizenship, so I came here when I was 21.
Wow.
Well, yeah, and he eventually made brigadier general.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, when I hear these stories, he used to love taking me to see, Battle of the Bulge, The Longest Day, all the different war movies, and he would, educate me as to what was going on, and he loved them. And they must have been awful in terms of their rendition of what happened, but he loved them.
Yeah. My dad too.
But when he saw the opening scenes of Saving Private Ryan, he got physically sick because he remembered it so clearly because it was so vivid. He couldn't watch it.
That's amazing.
But he lived to be 85. He lived a full life.
That's a beautiful film. Well, thank you,
anyway.
Neil. Thank you for sharing that. I am so excited to go home and see if I could find a connection between your dad and my dad, because that is amazing. My dad was in the Third Army.
And the other thing I should let you know, he was Jewish.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.